Have you ever stopped to think about how small daily attitudes can transform your life and bring you inner peace? In this video, we'll talk about the importance of cultivating mindfulness, a Buddhist teaching that invites us to live in the present and appreciate every moment. Get ready to discover valuable signs that indicate how practicing mindfulness can enrich your experiences and ease your worries, ensuring that you leave with practical tools for a fuller, more conscious life. I am Dory. On our channel, we explore Buddhist practices and rituals that help cultivate inner peace, compassion, and wisdom. Join us to learn and listen to profound teachings and discover how to apply Buddhist philosophy in your daily life. Subscribe to the channel and transform your spiritual journey. The presence of suffering is a constant in human life. On our journey, we often encounter pain, be it physical, emotional, or spiritual. Buddhism teaches us that suffering is an integral part of existence, but it also offers us a way to transcend this pain and find inner peace. Understanding the nature of suffering allows us not only to accept it, but also to transform it into an opportunity for growth and learning. The first step in dealing with suffering is to recognize its origin. The Buddha taught us that desire and attachment are the roots of suffering. When we become attached to things, people, or ideas, we create expectations that often don't come true, and this generates pain. The practice of detachment doesn't mean not loving or valuing what we have, but understanding that everything is impermanent. When we learn to let go of control and accept the transience of life, we find a freedom that protects us from suffering. A practical approach to cultivating this awareness is meditation. When we sit in silence, we observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment. This practice helps us to see how often we become attached to ideas and feelings, and how this attachment can lead to unhappiness. Instead of reacting impulsively to our emotions, we learn to observe and let them flow. Over time, this observation becomes a powerful tool for dealing with suffering. In addition, it's important to recognize that suffering can also be a teacher. Every pain we experience brings with it a lesson. Instead of avoiding or ignoring the pain, we can ask ourselves, what is this experience trying to teach me? Often, difficulties reveal aspects of ourselves that we need to understand better, such as our weaknesses, fears, and behavior patterns. By embracing suffering as a learning opportunity, we transform pain into a source of wisdom. Compassion is another essential key to dealing with suffering. When faced with our own pain, it's easy to fall into the trap of self-judgment and despair. However, by cultivating compassion for ourselves, we learn to treat our wounds with kindness. This same compassion can be extended to others. When we recognize that all human beings face their own struggles, we develop a deeper connection with those around us. Suffering ultimately unites us. By practicing compassion, we not only alleviate our own suffering, but also contribute to the healing of the world. Acceptance is a vital component of Buddhist practice. Accepting suffering does not mean resigning oneself to it, but rather recognizing its presence and allowing oneself to feel it. We often try to avoid or suppress pain, but this only intensifies it. Acceptance allows us to face reality as it is, without illusions. When we accept what we cannot change, we find an inner peace that is profound and transformative. Now let's talk about impermanence, one of Buddhism's most profound and liberating concepts. Impermanence teaches us that everything is constantly changing. Our emotions, thoughts, relationships, and even our life circumstances are always in flux. This truth can be uncomfortable, especially when we are experiencing difficult times, but it is also a source of hope. By understanding that pain and suffering are also impermanent, we find the courage to face them. The practice of mindfulness is an effective way of connecting with impermanence. When we focus on the present moment, we begin to notice how experiences come and go. This perception helps us to let go of the need to control the future or hold on to the past. Life becomes a flow, and we are part of that flow. We learn to appreciate the moments of joy and accept the moments of pain, knowing that both are temporary. Impermanence also invites us to value what we have. When we recognize that everything can change at any moment, we are encouraged to live fully in the present. Gratitude becomes a daily practice. Instead of focusing on the things we lack, we can cultivate appreciation for everything we already have. This change in perspective brings a joy that is deep and lasting. It's important to remember that Buddhist practice is not a quest for a life without suffering. Instead, it is a path that teaches us how to navigate suffering with wisdom and compassion. By practicing observation, acceptance, and gratitude, we find a path that leads to a fuller and more meaningful life. Buddhist wisdom teaches us that by recognizing the nature of suffering and the impermanence of life, we can cultivate a life of inner peace, compassion, and connection. Each of us has the capacity to transform our experiences, no matter how challenging they may seem. By embracing our suffering and impermanence with an open heart, we find true freedom. If you're ready to transform your suffering into growth and wisdom, join the 21-Day Spirit Challenge. Discover powerful practices that will help you cultivate acceptance, compassion, and gratitude in your life. Don't miss this opportunity for transformation. Check out the link in the first comment and start your journey. The practice of meditation is a powerful tool for inner transformation. When we sit in silence, allowing the mind to calm down, we begin to observe our thoughts and emotions clearly. This observation is the first step towards understanding ourselves. In Buddhism, meditation is often described as a path to enlightenment. However, it is important to understand that enlightenment is not a destination, but rather an ongoing process of self-discovery and acceptance. There are various forms of meditation that can be practiced. Mindfulness meditation, for example, teaches us to be present in the moment. When we focus on our breathing, we are invited to let go of distractions and worries. This practice helps us to recognize that many of our thoughts are just that, thoughts. They don't define who we are. By observing our mental patterns, we begin to realize that the mind can be both a friend and an enemy. Wisdom lies in knowing when to give space to thoughts and when to let them go. Another form of meditation is metta meditation, or loving-kindness meditation. This practice encourages us to cultivate feelings of love and compassion, first for ourselves and then for those around us. By directing our thoughts towards the well-being of others, we create a space of connection and empathy. Metta. Meditation reminds us that all beings wish to be happy and avoid suffering. By embracing this truth, we can begin to see the world through a lens of compassion, transforming not only ourselves, but also the society in which we live. The practice of meditation is not without its challenges. Often, the mind wanders, and we can feel frustrated. This is where patience and kindness towards oneself come into play. Buddhism teaches us that practice is an act of love, and even moments of difficulty are opportunities for growth. Each time we encounter resistance, we have the chance to observe that resistance and learn from it. Over time, meditation becomes a safe space where we can reconnect with our deepest essence. Compassion is a fundamental quality that must be cultivated in our practice. In Buddhism, compassion is not just an emotion, but a way of living. It means treating ourselves and others with kindness, even in times of conflict or pain. By cultivating compassion, we learn to see beyond appearances and understand the stories that each human being carries. Each of us faces challenges and pain, and when we recognize this, we can develop a deeper connection with others. The act of serving is an expression of compassion. When we help others, we not only alleviate their suffering, but we also find greater meaning in our lives. Buddhism teaches us that altruism is one of the keys to true happiness. By turning outwards, instead of focusing only on our own needs, we discover a purpose that transcends the ego. Understanding impermanence is another central aspect of Buddhist philosophy that helps us cultivate inner peace. Everything in the universe is fleeting, and this truth can be both liberating and challenging. When we become attached to things, people, or situations, we create suffering for ourselves. The practice of meditation helps us to see this reality more clearly. By observing the transitory nature of our thoughts and emotions, we learn to let go of what no longer serves us. Accepting impermanence doesn't mean resignation. but rather the ability to live each moment to the full, observation and reflection on our actions and thoughts. By allowing ourselves to make mistakes and learn from them, we develop a deeper understanding of life and ourselves. Wisdom is not a destination to be reached, but a quality that develops over time. Each of us possesses this wisdom within us. It is like a flame that needs to be fed. By practicing meditation, cultivating compassion, and accepting impermanence, we make room for wisdom to flourish in our lives. Throughout our spiritual journey, remember that we are not alone. Each of us is part of an interconnected network of human beings, all seeking meaning and happiness. By supporting each other, we can create a more compassionate and loving world. Buddhist practice teaches us the importance of community, friendship, and mutual support. Together, we can face life's challenges with courage and compassion, turning our experiences into opportunities for growth and learning. The road is long, but each step taken with intention and love brings us closer to the inner peace and wisdom we all seek. May we walk this path together with open hearts and receptive minds. Life is a constant flow of change, and, like the seasons, our emotions and experiences also change. Impermanence is one of the central concepts of Buddhism, and understanding this can be liberating. Accepting the ephemeral nature of life helps us to let go, to not fixate on moments of pain or pleasure. When we feel sadness, we can remember that this emotion, like joy, is fleeting. This doesn't mean that we should ignore or repress our feelings, but rather recognize them as part of the human experience. Practicing acceptance of impermanence teaches us to live in the present. We often get lost in worries about the future or regrets about the past. However, by being fully present, we cultivate mindfulness, one of Buddhism's most powerful practices. Mindfulness invites us to experience each moment fully, allowing life to flow through us without resistance. A useful exercise is meditation on impermanence. Find a quiet place, sit comfortably, and close your eyes. Breathe deeply and bring to mind a situation that you find difficult or painful. Notice how this situation makes you feel, but remember that everything is transitory. Imagine this pain as a wave that comes and goes, then slowly bring to mind a moment of joy or satisfaction. Just like pain, joy is also fleeting. By doing this, you begin to develop the ability to see life as a flow, where nothing is permanent and everything is an opportunity for growth. In addition, compassion is a fundamental aspect of Buddhist practice. When we understand impermanence, we are also able to look more empathetically at others. We all face challenges, and by recognizing that pain is a common part of the human experience, we become more willing to offer support and understanding. True compassion arises when we see that everyone, just like us, is struggling with their own battles. This connects us on a deep level and encourages us to act with kindness and love. The practice of compassion is not only limited to others, but must also extend to ourselves. We are often our own worst critics, and this can generate a cycle of unnecessary suffering. By practicing inner compassion, we allow ourselves to be imperfect, recognizing that we are all on a learning path. Cultivating self-compassion is essential. Allow yourself to feel pain, but also offer yourself the same kindness you would offer a dear friend. Desire and attachment are sources of suffering, as the Buddha teaches us. When we become attached to people, objects, or even emotional states, we create a trap that prevents us from living fully. By accepting impermanence, we learn to let go of these attachments and live more freely. This doesn't mean that we shouldn't love or care. On the contrary, true love is that which doesn't depend on possessiveness. When we love without attachment, we experience a purer form of love, which is unconditional. Developing the ability to let go requires practice and patience. One way to start is by observing your own attachments. What do you feel you can't let go of? It could be a toxic relationship, an unsatisfying job, or expectations you have of yourself. Acknowledge these attachments and, with compassion, begin to explore what would happen if you let go of them. This can bring fear, but it can also open up space for new opportunities and experiences. As we go deeper into the practice of meditation, we find the wisdom that comes from stillness. Meditation is a powerful tool for connecting with our essence and for observing the nature of the mind. By sitting and simply observing our thoughts and feelings, we begin to understand that they come and go, just like the clouds in the sky. This practice teaches us not to identify with our thoughts, but to see them as passing phenomena. Stillness allows us to access a clarity that is often lost in the hustle and bustle of everyday life. The practice of meditation also helps us to cultivate a broader view of life. We often feel trapped in our own stories, our limitations, and our fears. When we meditate, we have the opportunity to step away from this narrative and look at life from a broader perspective. This brings a sense of freedom and reminds us that we are part of something bigger. This connection with the whole is fundamental to our spiritual evolution. Another important aspect of Buddhist practice is the cultivation of gratitude. When we recognize the impermanence and ephemeral nature of our experiences, we develop a deeper appreciation for what we have right now. Gratitude helps us to focus on the present and to value the little things in life. Instead of focusing on what we lack, how about starting to be grateful for what we already have? This change of perspective can transform our experience and bring us a sense of peace and contentment. In summary, understanding impermanence and practicing compassion are fundamental to our spiritual development. They help us to live more lightly, to connect with others more deeply, and to find meaning in our experiences. By embracing impermanence, we are invited to live each day with more presence, to let go of the attachments that hold us back, and to cultivate a compassionate heart that embraces everyone, including ourselves. This journey is a path of transformation, where each step brings us closer to true wisdom and inner peace. The practice of meditation is a powerful tool that invites us to dive into our inner selves, to seek silence in the midst of chaos. When we sit down to meditate, it's like taking a break from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. The mind, often so full of thoughts and worries, begins to calm down. It is in this space of tranquility that we are able to observe our feelings and emotions clearly. Meditation teaches us not to identify with our thoughts, but to see them as clouds passing through the sky. In Buddhism, meditation is an essential practice that connects us with the essence of our being. It allows us to cultivate mindfulness, which is the ability to be present in the moment. By practicing meditation regularly, we begin to realize the impermanence of all things. Every thought, every emotion is fleeting. This helps us to develop an attitude of acceptance towards what arises in our lives, whether pleasant or challenging experiences. There are different meditation techniques we can explore. One of them is breathing meditation, where we bring our attention to the natural flow of the breath. Sitting quietly, observing the inhalation and exhalation, helps us to anchor our mind in the present. Every time we get distracted, it's a gentle invitation to return to our focus. This simple but profound exercise strengthens our ability to concentrate and gives us a sense of peace. Another noteworthy practice is metta meditation, or loving-kindness meditation. In it, we cultivate feelings of love and compassion, initially directing these feelings towards ourselves, and then expanding them to friends, acquaintances, and even those with whom we have difficulties. This practice is transformative because by wishing others well, we also heal ourselves. Compassion becomes a path to connection, reminding us that we all share the same search for happiness and relief from suffering. The true power of meditation lies in its ability to connect us with impermanence and the interconnectedness of all things. As we delve deeper into this practice, we begin to realize that our lives are not isolated. Every action we take resonates with the world around us. This understanding invites us to act responsibly and cultivate empathy. In each moment, we have the opportunity to choose how we respond to situations, and this is a direct reflection of our internal state. Understanding impermanence is one of Buddhism's most profound teachings. Life is made up of cycles, ups and downs, joys and sorrows. When we accept that nothing is permanent, we can let go of attachment. Attachment is a source of suffering, because it leads us to want to hold on to and control what cannot be held on to. By cultivating acceptance of impermanence, we are able to appreciate the beauty of the present moment without the weight of the fear of loss. In moments of pain or difficulty, remember that this too will pass. Suffering is a part of life, but it is not the end. The practice of meditation helps us to face these challenges with calm and resilience. When we learn to observe our emotions without getting carried away by them, we find a space of freedom. We can feel the pain, but we can also choose how to react to it. This is the essence of Buddhist wisdom, responding to suffering with compassion, not resistance. Compassion is the heart of Buddhism. It's not just about feeling sorry or sad for the difficulties of others, but acting in a way that alleviates suffering. When we develop a meditation practice that includes compassion, we begin to see the world through the eyes of others. This makes us more aware of our actions and the impact they have on the lives around us. Compassion makes us more human and more connected. The practice of meditation and the acceptance of impermanence lead us to a state of non-aversion. We often react to what we don't like with resistance or aversion, creating an internal battle. However, by embracing impermanence, we can learn to let go of this resistance. When we find peace within, even the most challenging situations become less burdensome. What once seemed unbearable can, with the practice of meditation, become an opportunity for growth and learning. Life is a constant flow, and we are part of that flow. Each of us has the ability to influence this flow with our intentions and actions. By cultivating inner peace and compassion, we contribute to a more loving and harmonious world. Meditation is an invitation to this journey, a path to personal and collective transformation. In short, meditation is a practice that offers us the key to freedom. The freedom to be who we are, to feel what we feel, and to connect with others in a deeper way. By embracing impermanence and practicing compassion, we find a path to true peace. May we all follow this journey with openness and love, allowing the light of wisdom to illuminate our hearts and lives. 9. The importance of compassion in our daily lives. Compassion is the essence of Buddhist teaching, a principle that goes beyond a mere feeling. It is a practice that requires action and intention. When we look around us, we realize that the world is full of suffering, both visible and invisible. Every human being, every living creature, carries their own pains and challenges. Recognizing this is the first step towards cultivating compassion in our daily lives. When we talk about compassion, we often think of acts of kindness, but it is essential to understand that compassion begins within us. In order to offer love and care to others, we first need to nurture these feelings in our own hearts. This involves a process of self-acceptance, where we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and recognize our own struggles. The practice of meditation can be a powerful way to do this. By sitting in silence and observing our thoughts and emotions, we begin to understand the nature of suffering, both our own and that of others. Once we have established this inner connection, we can begin to expand our compassion to the world. This doesn't mean that we should solve all the problems around us, but rather that we should strive to act with kindness in our daily interactions. Every little gesture counts, a smile to a stranger, a word of encouragement to a friend, or even an attentive listen. These actions are not just benevolent, they create a field of positive energy that reverberates around us, touching the lives of the people we meet. It is essential to remember that compassion should not be selective. Often, we may find it easier to feel compassion for those we love or sympathize with. However, the real challenge lies in extending this feeling to those who irritate or hurt us. The Buddha taught us to see all beings as interconnected. When we are able to look at others with a look of understanding, even in the most difficult situations, we are practicing genuine and deep compassion. Practicing compassion also helps us to deal with our own suffering. Often, the pain we feel is exacerbated by selfishness and attachment. By directing our attention to others, we begin to realize that our personal battles are not unique. This realization can lighten the load we carry, creating a space for healing and growth. Instead of fixating on our own problems, we can find strength and inspiration in the struggles of others, developing a sense of belonging and unity. 10. Detachment as a path to freedom. Detachment is one of the most challenging yet liberating concepts within Buddhist philosophy. We live in a world that teaches us to value possessions, relationships, and even our own identities. However, the Buddha invited us to question this view, to look at what it really means to be free. True freedom comes from detachment, which should not be confused with indifference or the absence of love. Detachment doesn't mean abandoning what we love or ceasing to care about others. Instead, it is an invitation to observe our connections and the nature of our happiness. We often believe that happiness lies in external things, a job, a relationship, or material possessions. However, by attaching ourselves to these external sources, we become prisoners of our own expectations and fears. Detachment teaches us to find happiness within ourselves, regardless of external circumstances. The practice of detachment begins with awareness. When we are faced with an intense desire or need for control, we are invited to stop and examine these emotions. What is really behind this desire? Often, we find fears of loss or the search for validation. By recognizing them, we begin to dismantle the force they exert on us. This practice of self-examination is an essential step towards cultivating inner freedom. Letting go also includes accepting impermanence. Everything that exists is constantly changing. Our lives, our relationships, and even ourselves are in a continuous flux. When we can accept this truth, we become more flexible and resilient in the face of adversity. Fear of the future and the pain of loss lose their intensity when we understand that everything is part of the great cycle of life. It's important to understand that detachment doesn't mean not making an effort or not getting emotionally involved. It is possible to love deeply without being trapped by the fear of losing that love. When we love in a detached way, we allow the other person to be who they really are, without trying to mold or control them. This form of love is pure and authentic, because it is based on acceptance and mutual freedom. Finally, detachment leads us to a deeper understanding of interdependence. By recognizing that we are all part of a greater whole, we begin to see that our actions have repercussions not only on our lives, but on the lives of others. This awareness encourages us to act responsibly and compassionately, creating a positive impact on the world around us. The freedom we seek is not the absence of attachment, but the ability to love and live fully, without the bonds of attachment.